Hey everyone, this is Shintai, host of the Anime Room, and here with me I have a guest. This is Mitch. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Today we're going to be talking about The Skull Man, which you yourself recommended me. I gotta say, I was a little skeptical going into it, but this was really good.
I was like that too. I mean, I'd heard about it, and I'm like, this could be good. This could be really good. It's kind of shaky at the start. It's a bit slow, but it picks up really fast. That show was really good.
Yeah, it does start off a little bit slow. I didn't mind it that much because it was still interesting. There's still shit that you don't really know. It's interesting enough to keep going, and then you get rewarded. It gets a lot better the more you go through it.
The first 3 episodes are establishing the world and the characters. After that, it's see how this big old conspiracy plays out. Unless you count episode 0, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, episode 0, it was basically this live action thing that they decided to do. It's kind of cool. It's not really necessary. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to, but it's interesting.
The guy that wrote the original one-shot manga was like, I want this adapted to the television series. But that didn't happen because it was pretty violent, pretty screwed up. It got reworked in the Kamen Rider.
Yeah, I could kind of get that when I watched it. I was like, oh, this is kind of like an homage, almost. And I like that you brought up that the show is really violent. Going into this kind of show, he's a dude in a costume, basically. Yeah, sure, he looks kind of menacing, but you don't expect a show that gives that kind of first impression just by looking at the character to be as dark and messed up as it is. But the show is actually a lot deeper than you would expect. Because I was just expecting, some dude running around beating up monsters. And that's a very small part of the show. It's actually more about discovering the mystery and uncovering what the hell this weird religious cult is up to, and it goes so much deeper than you might expect.
Despite being named the Skullman, the show's definitely not just about him. It's more about the guys following him and not even his goals. It's a real mystery, that show.
Yeah, I think that's another good point. That it's called the Skullman, but it really isn't about him so much. He is a big part of it. It's not simply, we're just following around the Skullman. It's all about him, which I thought was really interesting. And I like that he was shrouded in mystery.
They really didn't reveal too much about him until towards the end. Kind of dumped, here's my whole backstory. And even then, a lot of it was implied and never clearly stated.
And I like that once things were starting to get revealed towards the end, you could think back to some of the things that happened during the series and you're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. The things that character said, you look back on and you're like, oh, okay, that's why that person said that. Or, oh, this alludes to that.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of callbacks to things that characters have said, or they'll say things that, don't make a lot of sense. They'll say stuff, and then after you finish the series, they make much more sense.
Just on a pure superficial level as well, I think the show is really good. In terms of the visuals, it's pretty solid, especially during the fight scenes. Normally when they're just walking around talking and stuff, the animation's okay, but during the fight scenes especially, the quality of the animation jumps up and it looks really good.
Yeah, it's quite the opposite. If you see really high fight scenes in anime, the animation tends to maybe get a bit blurred out, or just because they're going to be animating so much, we need to kind of cut down on this. But if anything, the animation quality did go up during the fight scenes because they were so sparse and few and far between.
Not just that, but the show's only 13 episodes, so they had a lot more to work with in terms of their budget.
Yeah, definitely. A good looking show, I'll give it that.
I also really liked the music. The music in this show, oh man, it was really good.
Yeah, the music is good. It's great when it's mostly classical pieces and some really kind of ambient, almost non-existent jazz. The Skullman's theme, Elegy, that's really good. That's a really suspenseful, tense piece.
I think the classical music also fits because the Skullman likes to walk around quoting Shakespeare, which I think just makes him so much more badass. How much more badass can you get than going around killing demons and quoting Shakespeare?
Yeah, that is pretty metal. It's I'm so high class and regal, I can quote literary genius and then kick kaijin ass. The music in the talking sections are just we're gonna hang out in the house and talk about stuff, kind of unnoticeable. And there's a lot of tracks on the soundtrack that was that even in the show? As a whole, the soundtrack's pretty good.
Some of those tracks do kind of mesh with the scenes and you can't notice them sometimes, but when the soundtrack wants you to know it's there, it usually does, and it makes scenes a lot better. It makes them much more suspenseful, makes them a lot more tense, and it really builds the atmosphere of certain scenes.
I mean, I think when it comes to most people are going to pay attention to is the opening theme. The opening theme of this show was pretty good. It definitely grows on you.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it starts off being really foreboding, tense, and then it just goes into this weird jazzy sort of thing. It's very strange and offbeat, but I think it works well and it fits the show.
It goes well with the visuals. They don't really clash, but it's that's such a strange combination, but it works so well. It's this really upbeat kind of jazzy tune with some dark visuals.
We should start winding down a bit. You have any final thoughts? episodes.
Looking back on it, it's probably one of the animes I enjoyed the most this year. In fact, it's probably one of the ones I've enjoyed in the last like 5 or 6, next to like Eva Bacano. That's another 13 episode show. It's definitely worth checking out.
I concur. I think it's a really good show. It's pretty short, only 13 episodes. You can watch it in a couple of afternoons, get a really good time out of it. I would also add, I would recommend watching it with another person who hasn't watched it yet, because then you could start discussing and theorizing the different mysteries of the show. That's what I did, and I think that made the experience a little bit better. Oh, what did you think of this? And who do you think the Skull Man is? I think the Skull Man is this character. Things like that. I think it made the experience a little bit better, but you still watch it on your own. Still, of course, it's still a good enough show to watch on your own. All around, very solid. Can't really think of anything that was glaring wrong with it. It was just an all-around very good show.
Yeah, I can't think of anything much wrong with it. Maybe the ending might not be entirely clear to someone who's not familiar with the guy who did his work, but like Googling, you'll figure it out. It's really not that hard. It's definitely a no shit moment. I'll give it that.
Alright, thank you a lot for joining me, man. It was a pleasure to have you.
No problem, man.
I'll see you guys soon. This has been Shintai and Mitch chilling in the anime room. Take care.